The slap echoed across the ballroom. Gasps rippled through the crowd, halting music and conversation alike. Every camera turned, hungry for scandal. Aria Valen stood frozen, her palms stinging, her pulse pounding. Across from her, a woman in sequins trembled, a red mark blooming on her cheek. The guests stared in disbelief. She insulted one of the waiters. Aria said quietly, voice trembling with anger, "I won't tolerate cruelty, not even in my father's house." The woman sputtered, You hit me." "Yes," Aria replied, her tone steady now. "And I'd do it again." Before we dive deeper into the story, don't forget to tap that like and hit subscribe. Also, tell us where you are watching from in the comments section below. Now let's continue. A silence deeper than shock filled the air. The cameras flashed. The elite whispered. From the corner of the room, Richard Valen, Aria's father, billionaire and king of the city's steel empire, watched his daughter with a fury disguised as a smile. He clapped once, slow and deliberate, stepping forward. "My apologies, everyone. My daughter has a passionate sense of justice." Laughter rippled uncertainly through the guests, but Aria saw the promise of wrath behind her father's composed face. The orchestra resumed. The chatter returned. The moment passed, for everyone but her. Aria's throat tightened. She could feel the invisible chains of her world tightening again. She excused herself quickly, her heels clicking across marble as she slipped through the double doors and out into the cold night. The balcony was quiet. The city stretched out beneath her like a sea of glittering lies. Aria leaned against the railing, sucking in a shaky breath. From up here, the lights looked alive, free, untamed, everything she wasn't. She pulled out a small sketchbook from her clutch, fingers smudged faintly with graphite. Drawing calmed her, the only thing that felt real. Tonight, she sketched the skyline, but the lines kept shaking. "Should I call for someone to clean up the mess you made in there?" The voice was deep, even, the kind that carried authority without trying. She turned sharply. A tall man stood in the doorway, dressed in black, posture sharp as a blade. His face was unfamiliar, his expression unreadable. "I didn't know my father's guards doubled as comedians," she said softly. "I wasn't joking, Miss Valen." He stepped into the moonlight. Square jaw, storm gray eyes, the kind of calm that made others nervous. "Cole Maddox," he introduced himself. "Head of your personal security detail. Starting tonight." Her brow arched. "New bodyguard? What happened to the last one?" "Transferred." "Meaning fired." "Meaning transferred," he repeated, voice low but firm. Aria studied him for a moment. "You look like you don't smile often." "I don't get paid for that." That drew the faintest hint of amusement from her. "Then you'll fit right in." She turned back to the skyline, her voice softer now. "Tell me something, Cole. Do you ever get tired of being told what to do?" He hesitated. "It's part of the job. Must be a boring one. Safer than yours, apparently." She glanced at him then, surprised by the hint of wit beneath his stoicism. But before she could reply, the sound of her father's voice boomed from inside. "Aria." Richard Valen's tone wasn't anger, it was warning. He approached with that polished smile he wore for investors, not family. "You left our guests hanging." "Again." "I was just getting some air." "You'll have plenty of air when you're Mrs. Cross." Aria blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Her father's smile tightened. "Nathaniel Cross. Damien's nephew. Brilliant, respectable, politically ambitious. You'll make an announcement at next month's fundraiser." "I don't even know him." Richard's eyes hardened. "You will. This isn't about love, Aria. It's about legacy." Her voice lowered. "You're building a prison and calling it family." "And you're my daughter," he said sharply. "You'll do as I say." Then, as if the conversation never happened, he turned back toward the party. Cole stood quietly a few feet away. He'd heard everything. Aria didn't look at him. She just whispered to herself, "You can't build legacy on a broken soul." Later, inside the grand hall, her friend Ivy Lorne appeared beside her like a vision of luxury. Emerald gown, with a perfect smile. "Darling, you're trending already," Ivy whispered, showing her phone screen. The clip of Aria's slap was circulating online. "Wonderful," Aria muttered. Another headline for father's wrath. "Oh, please. It's iconic. You finally showed a pulse." Ivy sipped her champagne. "Honestly, someone had to put that woman in her place. But I'm sure your father's losing his mind. Probably drafting a press statement as we speak." "Well," Ivy said slyly, If you ever need to make him angrier, start flirting with your new guard. That'll set him on fire. Aria gave her a flat look. Don't be ridiculous. Ivy smirked. I'm never ridiculous. Just observant. Her gaze flicked toward Cole, standing near the exit, scanning the crowd with precision. He's got the don't mess with me vibe. Dangerous. I like him. Aria rolled her eyes, but she couldn't deny she'd noticed him too. The way he never looked directly at her for too long, like he was afraid to. Stop staring, Aria said under her breath. I was talking about you, Ivy teased. When Aria excused herself later, her heels clicked on marble until she stopped before an unmarked wooden door half-hidden behind an old tapestry. She glanced over her shoulder once, then slipped inside. The space was quiet, tucked beneath the east wing, a forgotten cellar she'd turned into her sanctuary. The scent of old paper and graphite filled the air. She set her clutch aside, pulled out her laptop, and powered it on. The faint hum of the screen lit her face, washing away the remnants of the night's chaos. Her fingers moved with purpose, not typing words of apology for the scandal, but transferring quiet pieces of power into places he'd never approve of. Tonight she sent enough to secure a new shelter in the East District, a place where women could sleep without fear and where children would not have to listen to grown men argue about profit. The confirmation pinged quietly, a tiny, private drumbeat of victory. Aria let out a soft breath and closed the laptop, the thrill of it a brief light in a life mostly dimmed by duty. A shadow filled the doorway before she realized someone had entered. Cole stood framed in the study's doorway, the hall light throwing half his face into relief. He watched her for a long second, expression blank. You're working late, he said. Aria's hand hovered over the laptop. She'd expected to be alone. I sleep late, she replied. And I don't work. I just plan. Cole stepped inside the room, closing the door behind him. The quiet between them tightened like a held note. There was a light on, he said carefully. Security does its rounds. She met his eyes, none of the play the others used with him. Do you patrol because you enjoy it, or because someone tells you to? He gave a breathless half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. Orders. I made my own tonight, she said. It felt good. He drew nearer, and for a moment the mansion, the portraits, the hush, the weight of her name, slid away. You shouldn't do that, Cole said, not as a command but as concern. Someone has to, she whispered. He glanced at the closed laptop, then back at her. It's dangerous. If anyone found out. She nodded. That's the point. The soft click of an earpiece crackled faintly at his temple. Cole stiffened as a voice, flat, controlled, came through. Sir, update. He swallowed. The professional mask snapped back. All clear. Routine check. He paused. Then, quieter, she's safe for now. When the connection cut, Cole looked at Aria with a complexity that made her suddenly wary. My orders are to report suspicious behavior, he said, the words heavy. But I'm not here to make you feel monitored. I'm here to protect. Aria let out a short laugh that tasted like admission. Protection and prison share a wall, don't they? For some, he agreed. Not everyone. They stood in that fragile truce, silence easing into something that might have been understanding. Cole straightened, the duty returning with the firmness of a uniform. You should rest. Tomorrow will be full. She closed the sketchbook she'd left on the desk, fingers brushing the graphite-streaked pages. I will, she promised, though the promise felt thin. When Cole left, the room felt larger and lonelier all at once. She sat with the hum of the laptop and the small echo of his voice in the corridor, and for the first time in years, she wondered how much of her life she had carved out for herself, and how much was still carved by someone else. Outside, the city spread like an ocean of possibilities she both feared and craved. Inside, the mansion held its breath, waiting for the next move in a game she had not chosen to play. She whispered to the empty room, a confession she would never give her father. I can't keep living like this. A faint answer came in the house's silence, not in words but in the steady thud of footsteps through the hall as security resumed its rounds, and in the knowledge that eyes were watching from more places than one. Downstairs, in the quiet of the early morning when the staff took their first cups of coffee and the city still slept, Richard Valen's voice crackled into Cole's earpiece like an order wrapped in grace. Keep her close, he said. She doesn't realize how fragile our name is. Cole closed his eyes for a heartbeat, feeling the weight of the command and the dangerous tilt of his own conscience. He answered, steady as he could. Understood, sir. Later, as Aria slid beneath the covers in the pale light of dawn, she rolled onto her back and stared at the ceiling above her bed. The room, with its fine linens and soft lamps, felt like a set someone had created to show the best version of a life she didn't want. She thought of the women who would sleep under the roof her money had bought, of the way a child's laugh had sounded in a neighborhood she visited once in secret. She thought of Cole's voice, the way it softened when he spoke of duty and the way his eyes had looked at her, strangely human, unsettlingly honest. I can't trust anyone in this house, she said into the dark, more to herself than to anyone else. But beneath the certainty was a thin, dangerous hope, an unformed belief that maybe, in the hollow of this vast, gilded place, a truth could be found. Maybe someone was not there to tighten the chains, but to help loosen them. And somewhere in the house, a guard adjusted his earpiece and kept watch, the name of the Valen legacy heavy in his mouth, and the shape of another life impossible to ignore. Morning sunlight spilled through the glass walls of the Valen mansion, soft yet cold, like everything in that house. Aria sat at the breakfast table, stirring her untouched coffee while Richard read the paper opposite her, his composure flawless. Your outburst the other night made headlines, he said without looking up. You embarrassed this family. She kept her tone calm. I defended someone who couldn't defend themselves. Then next time, he said sharply, lowering the paper, choose your battles privately. You're not a revolutionary, Aria, you're a Valen. Her throat tightened. You keep confusing obedience with honor. Richard's eyes hardened. You have no idea what I've sacrificed for this name. Before she could reply, Cole entered quietly, giving a small nod. Car's ready, Miss Valen. Aria had been shocked when he told her he wanted her to do some charity. She wondered why he wanted to start charity all of a sudden, but the answer came to her quickly, good reputation. He's trying to buy good reputation. With the idea of the charity delighting her than the motive itself, Aria rose, clutching her purse, her tone brittle. I understand, father. The black SUV rolled out of the gates, city skyline gleaming ahead. Inside, silence reigned until Cole spoke. Where to, ma'am? She looked out the window. The St. Clair orphanage first, then the shelter at Harbor Street. That second one isn't on the schedule, he noted. I'm aware. Her lips curved slightly. I like surprising people. Cole said nothing more. His hands gripped the wheel, precise, steady, military neatness in every movement. Halfway down the highway, the car jolted violently. A loud bang echoed. Cole swerved, steadying the wheel. Damn it, tire blew. They rolled to a halt at the edge of a bustling lower district street. People moved between open stalls, vendors shouting over the music and smell of frying plantain. Cole unbuckled. Stay in the car. I'll call for backup. Aria pushed open her door. No need. I'll stretch my legs. He turned, alarm flashing in his eyes. Miss Valen, this isn't safe. Neither is living in a golden cage, she said lightly, stepping out before he could stop her. The noise of the street hit her like oxygen. Children darted past with makeshift kites. Women laughed behind steaming food stands, and the air smelled of spice, not perfume. Aria crouched near a group of kids drawing chalk flowers on the sidewalk. That's beautiful, she said softly. What's her name? A little girl beamed. It's the sky. I draw what I want to see. Aria smiled, her eyes shining. Then keep drawing. Maybe someday you'll paint the world you want. Behind her, Cole lingered, scanning the area, but his gaze kept drifting back to her. She didn't belong here, yet somehow she fit better than anywhere else. A vendor waved a skewer at Aria. Try some corn dog, miss. She laughed, taking one. Thank you. Cole stepped closer instantly. You shouldn't eat. She bit into it before he finished. Delicious. You worry too much. He tried not to smile. That's literally my job. You could try enjoying it once in a while, she said, handing him a skewer. He hesitated, then took it. You realize people here don't care about your last name. That's the point, she replied softly. It's the first time I've felt invisible. Something flickered in his eyes. Admiration, maybe pity. You're not invisible, Miss Valen. She met his gaze. Then stop calling me that. They returned to the car when the spare arrived. As Cole tightened the last bolt, Aria leaned against the hood, watching him. Why did you choose this job, Cole? He wiped his hands on a rag, avoiding her eyes. Let's just say it pays the bills. That's not an answer. He paused. Because protecting people makes me feel like I can fix something, even if I couldn't before. Her brow furrowed. Someone you couldn't protect? He said nothing. His jaw flexed once, the only answer she got. The silence stretched. Finally she murmured, "You hide behind discipline like it's armor. And you hide behind rebellion," he countered. "But armor cracks. So does glass." Their eyes met. A flicker of recognition, the kind that burns too quickly. Later that evening, as they returned to the mansion, Richard stood waiting in the foyer, Ivy by his side in a glittering dress. "Welcome back, darling," Ivy sang. "You're a sensation again. The papers adore your compassion tour." Richard's smile was razor-thin. So compassionate, she wandered into the slums unsupervised. Aria's eyes narrowed. "News travels fast." "It always does when you're a Valen," Ivy said sweetly, pouring herself wine. "Cole, dear, I hear you've been keeping our girl quite safe." "Maybe too safe." Cole's expression didn't shift. "Just doing my job, ma'am." Aria cut in sharply. "Enough, Ivy. Don't you have mirrors to flirt with?" Ivy smirked, unbothered. "Touchy. Must have been quite a day." She turned to Richard. "I only meant she deserves someone who understands her world." Aria's tone iced over. "And you'd be that person?" Richard's voice ended the exchange. "Cole, a word." In Richard's study, the air was colder. The man closed the door behind them and gestured to the decanter. "Drink." "No, sir." Richard poured himself a glass anyway. "You've been in my daughter's company quite a bit. She seems fond of you." Cole stood rigid. "My assignment requires proximity." "Of course. But let me make something clear." Richard's tone turned to steel. "You're paid to protect her reputation, not to endanger it. The Valen name is fragile, and I don't tolerate cracks." "Yes, sir." Richard studied him. "Good. Then keep your distance. Whatever warmth she mistakes for kindness, end it." Cole nodded once, throat tight. "Understood." As he turned to leave, Richard added quietly, "A man like you should know. People like us burn those who stand too close." Night deepened. The mansion slept. But Cole couldn't. He paced the corridor outside Aria's study, the echo of her laughter from earlier haunting him. He told himself he didn't care, that she was just another assignment. Yet his hand paused on the doorknob when he saw light spilling from beneath it. Inside, Aria sat by her desk, sketching again, the same city skyline, but now she'd drawn herself small in the corner, holding a birdcage open. "Can't sleep?" his voice said from the doorway. She jumped slightly, then smiled faintly. "You're good at sneaking up on people. Bad habit from another life." She gestured to the drawing. "I keep sketching cages. Maybe I'm trying to draw my way out." He stepped closer, stopping just behind her chair. "Maybe one day you will." Their eyes met in the reflection of the glass window. Silence thickened, heavy, charged. Then Richard's voice shattered it, echoing down the hallway. "Cole." He stiffened instantly. Aria whispered, "Go, before he sees you here." For a second, he didn't move. Then he said quietly, "Good night, Aria." Her heart stumbled, the first time he'd said her name. When he left, she sat there long after the light faded under the door, whispering the word back to herself like a promise. "Good night, Cole." In the hall, Richard watched Cole walk away, eyes cold with suspicion. Upstairs, Aria looked out the window toward the city, unaware that love had already begun to cost her more than she could imagine. The next morning, sunlight poured through the glass walls of the Valen estate, illuminating a world too perfect to be real. The manicured gardens shimmered with dew, fountains whispered, and maids moved in silence, trained to vanish when not needed. Aria sat at the breakfast table, untouched toast on her plate, scrolling through news headlines on her tablet. Valen heiress causes scene at charity ball. Socialite slaps guest. Family refuses comment. Her stomach twisted. Will they ever drop this? It's been how many nights now? "Don't let it get to you," Ivy said breezily from across the table, buttering her croissant. "You looked amazing while doing it." Aria gave her a dry look. "Thank you, publicist of the year." Ivy smirked. "I mean it. People are obsessed. You've gone from polished princess to rebellious heiress overnight. Half the internet wants to be you. The other half wants to be slapped by you." Aria sighed, tossing the tablet aside. "That's not who I want to be." "Then who do you want to be?" Ivy asked, voice softer now. Aria didn't answer. The truth felt too fragile to name. Free. She wanted to create art, to live without permission, to disappear into the crowd instead of ruling above it. Just then, Cole appeared by the doorway, crisp in his black suit, earpiece in place. "Miss Valen, your father's asked that I accompany you to your appointment downtown." Aria frowned. "What appointment?" "Meeting with Mr. Cross," he said, unreadable. "The one your father arranged." Ivy let out a low whistle. "So it begins." Aria groaned. "Cancel it." Cole's expression didn't change. "I'm afraid that's not my decision." Her gaze hardened. "Then I guess I'm making one for myself." The ride into the city was silent. Aria sat in the back seat beside Cole, watching skyscrapers blur past. The closer they got to downtown, the more her chest tightened. Every turn of the car felt like another step toward a life she didn't choose. When the car stopped at a high-rise restaurant, she hesitated before stepping out. "Do I look like someone meeting her arranged fiancé?" she asked quietly. Cole's gaze flicked over her outfit. A soft beige dress, hair tied loosely back, no jewelry except a tiny silver pendant. "You look like someone deciding whether to run," he said. She met his eyes then, caught off guard by how easily he saw through her. For a second, she almost smiled. "Would you stop me?" she asked. His jaw tightened. "It's my job to keep you safe." That's not an answer. He didn't give one. Inside the restaurant, Nathaniel Cross was already waiting. Tall, perfectly styled, all confidence and ambition. He rose when he saw her, extending a hand. "Aria Valen," he said smoothly. "Even prettier than the tabloids claim." She shook his hand briefly, forcing a polite smile. "And you're as rehearsed as they warned me." He chuckled, unbothered. "I'll take that as a compliment." Cole stood discreetly by the corner, pretending not to listen, though every muscle in his body was alert. Nathaniel's charm was practiced, his laugh too polished, the kind of man who never left anything unscripted. They ordered lunch. He talked about family ties, political influence, and the merging of empires, as if she were a strategic acquisition, not a person. Aria stirred her coffee slowly. "Do you always talk like a press release?" Nathaniel leaned forward, smirking. "You don't have to like me now. We have time for that. Assuming I don't run first." He smiled wider. "You won't. People like us don't run, Aria. We build kingdoms." Her throat tightened. "Sometimes the kingdom feels more like a cage." "Then maybe you need the right king," he said, eyes glinting. Before she could reply, her phone buzzed. A message from Ivy. "You're trending again. Hashtag slap queen, hashtag Valen rebel." Aria exhaled shakily, then stood up. "Thank you for the meal, Nathaniel. I'll tell my father we spoke." He rose too. "You're making a mistake walking away from this." She gave him a small, tired smile. "It wouldn't be my first." Cole followed her out, silent as ever. But when they reached the car, she stopped suddenly, turning to him. "Take me somewhere," she said. "Anywhere that doesn't smell like money or expectations." He hesitated. "That's not on the schedule." "Neither was that slap last night," she said with a hint of defiance. But it happened. After a long pause, he opened the car door. "Get in." They drove away from the city until glass towers gave way to quiet streets and fading sunlight. Eventually, Cole parked near an old pier overlooking the bay, quiet, secluded, the water whispering against wooden planks. Aria stepped out and breathed in deeply. The air smelled like salt and freedom. "How did you know this place?" "I didn't," Cole said. "I just kept driving until it felt right." She smiled faintly, walking toward the edge of the pier. "It's perfect." He stood beside her, hands tucked in his pockets, eyes scanning the horizon. "You shouldn't be out here without clearance." "Then consider this off the record," she said. They stood in silence for a while, listening to the water. Then Aria spoke softly. "Do you ever feel like your life isn't yours?" Cole's eyes stayed on the horizon. "Every day." She turned to him. "Then why do you stay?" He hesitated. "Because sometimes, keeping someone else safe feels easier than saving yourself." Something in his tone made her chest ache. She took a step closer, the wind tugging at her hair. "You're not like the others, are you?" "I'm exactly like them," he said quietly. "I just hide it better." Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world stilled. No money, no names, no chains. Just two souls suspended between duty and desire. Then his earpiece crackled. "Cole, do you copy? Mr. Valen is looking for his daughter." Reality slammed back. Aria stepped away, mask sliding back into place. "Guess freedom never lasts long." Cole didn't move. He just said quietly, "You keep chasing it anyway." By the time they returned to the estate, night had fallen. The mansion was quiet, too quiet. As Aria entered the foyer, her father's voice cut through the silence. "Where were you?" She froze. Richard Valen stood at the foot of the stairs, anger burning cold in his eyes. "Do you have any idea what kind of mess you're making for this family?" "I was breathing," she said evenly. "I didn't know that was a crime." His tone sharpened. "You will not embarrass me again. From now on, Cole doesn't leave your side. You go where I say, when I say. Am I clear?" Aria's heart sank. Cole's face was unreadable beside her. "Yes, father," she said finally, voice brittle as glass. As she walked upstairs, Cole followed, the echo of her father's control ringing behind every step. But in her chest, beneath all the fear, a spark refused to die. The taste of freedom was still on her tongue, and she would not forget it. The rain came without warning. It swept through the Valen estate like a storm determined to drown every secret it touched. Lightning flashed across the sky, glinting off the marble floors as Aria stood by the tall windows, watching droplets race each other down the glass. She wasn't supposed to be awake. The entire house slept, except for her and the man stationed outside her door. Cole Maddox. He'd been there for hours, silent, immovable, a shadow made of duty. Aria turned from the window and opened her door quietly. He looked up immediately, alert even at midnight. "Couldn't sleep," she said. "I can tell," he replied softly. She hesitated. "Do you ever stop being a soldier?" His gaze softened a little. "It's hard to forget the habit of surviving." Aria stepped closer. "Come in for a moment." He frowned. "That's not an order," she interrupted. "It's an invitation." After a brief pause, he followed her in. The study was dimly lit, candles flickering on her desk beside half-finished sketches. A storm outside, a storm inside. "You sketch when you can't sleep," he said, noticing the open pad. "It's the only thing I can control," she murmured, tracing the edge of her pencil. "Unlike my life." Cole said nothing, but his silence carried weight, the kind that listens instead of judges. "I used to dream about leaving," she confessed quietly. "Just disappearing. No name, no money. Just me." She glanced at him. "Do you ever dream like that?" He looked at her, really looked, and something in his eyes faltered. "I stopped letting myself dream a long time ago. Maybe you should start again." He gave a faint smile. "Not everyone gets that luxury, Miss Valen." "Aria," she corrected softly. "Just Aria." "Aria." Her father's voice sliced through the quiet like a blade. Richard Valen stood in the doorway, drenched from rain, his face pale with fury. Behind him, two security men hovered uncertainly. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. Cole straightened instantly, shoulders squared. "Sir, I was ensuring Miss Valen's safety." "By being in her room at midnight?" Richard roared. "You're dismissed." Effective immediately, Aria stepped forward. "No, he didn't do anything wrong." "Be quiet," her father snapped. "You've embarrassed this family enough." Her hands trembled at her sides. "You can't keep treating me like property." "I can," he said coldly. "Because you are mine to protect and control until you're someone else's problem." Her voice cracked. "You mean Nathaniel's?" "Exactly. At least he understands responsibility." "Responsibility?" she whispered. "Or ownership?" Richard's jaw tightened. "Pack your things, Cole. I'll have your replacement by morning." Cole's expression didn't change, but his eyes flicked toward Aria for half a second, enough to say don't fight him here. When the door slammed behind her father, Aria's composure shattered. "This is my fault," she whispered. Cole shook his head. "You didn't do anything wrong." "I asked you in," she said, voice breaking. "I should have known he'd." He stepped forward gently. "Stop. You're not the one who should be ashamed." She looked up at him, and for the first time, tears blurred her vision. He reached out, hesitated, then brushed his thumb across her cheek. It was a simple touch, but it burned through her like lightning. "I'll be fine," he said quietly. "But you need to be careful now. Your father's not just angry. He's afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of losing control," Cole said. "And you're the one thing he can't seem to control anymore." By morning, Aria woke to the sound of suitcases being rolled down the hall. She rushed to the foyer in her robe, heart hammering. Cole stood near the door, duffel bag over his shoulder, eyes calm but distant. "You're really leaving?" she asked. He nodded once. "Your father's orders." "Then stay until he changes his mind," she pleaded. "That's not how men like him work," Cole said quietly. You know that. She swallowed hard. Where will you go? Wherever I'm told, he said, then hesitated. Unless. Unless what? He looked at her, something unspoken flickering in his eyes. Unless you decide to stop letting him decide your life for you. Her breath hitched. You're asking me to run. I'm asking you to choose, he said. Freedom always comes with a price. Her heart raced. And if I pay it? He gave a small, sad smile. Then maybe you finally start living. Before she could answer, footsteps echoed down the hall. Her father's assistant appeared, clipboard in hand. Miss Valen, Mr. Cross has arrived for brunch. Aria froze. Cole's eyes softened, a silent goodbye. Then he was gone. The brunch was unbearable. Nathaniel Cross sat across from her, dressed in casual confidence, sipping espresso like he owned the world. Heard you lost your bodyguard, he said lightly. Your father must be furious. Not as much as I am, Aria muttered. Nathaniel smirked. You'll get over it. We always do. Her jaw tightened. You talk like you've already won. Oh, I don't need to win, he said. I just need to wait until you stop fighting. He reached across the table, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. You can only run from your destiny for so long, Aria. She forced herself to meet his gaze. Then maybe I'll start running faster. That night, Aria sat in her car, parked just outside the city. The rain had stopped, but the streets still shimmered. In her lap, her phone buzzed with a single message. Unknown number. If you ever want out, meet me at the pier. Midnight. Her heart skipped. Cole. For a long moment, she just stared at the screen. Then she started the car. The pier was quiet, waves lapping softly against wood. Cole stood at the edge, coat damp, eyes shadowed by the moonlight. He turned when he heard her footsteps. You came, he said simply. I had to, she whispered. I can't keep living like this. He stepped closer. Then let's leave. Tonight. Before your father locks you into something you'll never escape. Tears stung her eyes. You'd really risk everything for me? I already did, he said. The day I let myself care. The words hung between them. Raw, dangerous, real. Aria took a shaky breath, then reached for his hand. Then let's go. But as they turned toward his car, a pair of headlights cut through the darkness. Richard Valen's voice thundered from the shadows. Going somewhere. Cole froze. Aria's grip tightened on his hand. Her father stepped forward, flanked by guards, his expression carved from fury and betrayal. You've disgraced this family for the last time, he hissed. And you, his glare shifted to Cole, will regret ever thinking you could touch what's mine. The guards advanced. Aria's heart pounded. Dad, stop. But Richard didn't stop. Not even when Cole stepped between them. Step away from him, Aria, Richard ordered, his voice low but deadly. Right now. Cole's stance didn't waver. Sir, please. This isn't the way. The way. Richard cut in. You think you can lecture me about what's right while you're stealing my daughter? I didn't steal her, Cole said evenly. You lost her when you stopped seeing her as a person. Richard's expression darkened. You forget your place. Aria stepped forward before the guards could move. No, father. He remembers it. You're the one who never let him have one. The silence that followed cracked like thunder. For the first time, Richard looked shaken, not by defiance, but by the calm in her voice. I'm not your property, Aria said, every word trembling but steady. I'm not an extension of your empire or a pawn in your deals. I'm just me, and I'm done living in your cage. Richard's lips thinned. You think love will protect you? He's just another man who wants something from you. Maybe, she whispered. But he gave me something you never did, a choice. Cole's hand found hers again, grounding her. We're leaving, Mr. Valen. You can't stop her anymore. Richard's guards shifted uncertainly. Even they could feel the moment teetering on something irreversible. Richard took a slow step forward, his voice cold. If you walk away now, Aria, you walk away from everything. Your inheritance, your name, your legacy. I'd rather lose a legacy built on fear, she said, than lose myself trying to keep it. For a moment, the old man faltered. The rain started again, soft, hesitant, like even the heavens were holding their breath. Then, quietly, Richard turned away. So be it, he muttered. You made your choice. The headlights dimmed as his car pulled back from the pier, his guards following without another word. Aria stood there, watching the taillights vanish into the night until there was nothing left but rain and waves. Her chest rose and fell, trembling. The sound of freedom was terrifyingly quiet. Cole stepped closer. You okay? She turned to him, her eyes glistening with tears she didn't bother to hide. No, she whispered, but I think I will be. He smiled faintly, brushing a damp strand of hair from her cheek. Then let's get out of here, before your father changes his mind. She gave a shaky laugh. Where would we even go? Anywhere that doesn't have your last name carved on every wall, he said softly. And in that fragile moment, after years of walls, expectations, and gilded chains, Aria leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was quiet, like a promise whispered against the wind. A kiss that said this is real. His hand found the side of her face, steady and warm, pulling her closer until the world blurred away. When they finally broke apart, her forehead rested against his. What now? She breathed. Now, he said, voice low and sure. You live. For yourself. For the first time. She nodded, smiling through her tears. With you. Always. 6 months later. The morning light spilled through the large windows of a small coastal art studio, her studio. Canvases lined the walls, painted with storms and dawns and faces she once saw only in dreams. Aria wiped her hands on her apron and stepped back to look at her latest piece, a painting of the pier where everything changed. A familiar voice came from behind her. You still paint like the world's on fire. She turned, heart lifting instantly. Cole leaned against the doorframe, half-smile tugging at his lips, his security uniform replaced with a leather jacket and worn jeans. Maybe it still is, she teased. But at least now, I'm watching it burn on my own terms. He crossed the room, sliding an arm around her waist. You missed brunch with the gallery director. Let him wait, she said, grinning. I'm busy living. He chuckled, kissing her temple. You've changed, Aria Valen. She looked up at him. No, I just stopped being afraid to be myself. He smiled, then kissed her again, slow and unhurried, as the sea breeze drifted through the open window. For once, there were no guards, no father's shadow, no chains. Only the sound of waves and two people who had finally chosen freedom. We've come to the end of this story. If you felt that ending, don't swipe just yet. What would you choose, freedom or family legacy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories like this one, full of love, courage, and second chances, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one. Your next favorite story is already loading.